Good afternoon. I can tell you can hear me. My name is Mike Blanchard. I'm Vice President of our Customer Intelligence business. I'm delighted to have you all here today. Thank you for spending your time with SAS. We know you have lots of choices of these events to attend, so we're thrilled to have you all with us. I'm just going to give you a few remarks up front, and then I'm going to present the agenda to you today. But first of all, I just wanted to make a call out for some of the customer intelligence team that are here this week. So pretty much all of our product and engineering leadership are with you this week. So myself, Steve, who runs the engineering team, Rob, who runs our product and product strategy, Kate and Scott, who run our Americas business, and then we have some of the team that are shown on the screen. I'm going to do a special call out for two of our, we're going to talk a lot about agentic capabilities, and the two people that are responsible for our agentic capabilities are in this room. Well, I haven't seen Mac actually, but Mac and, oh, there he is, Mac and Cameron at this table over here. So, you know, please just go and have a chat to them. You'll be blown away by what they are doing in SAS, and I think you'll be incredibly excited as well. So I'm just going to spend one slide. I'm using only one slide when I speak to customers at the moment that sort of drives our strategy. It's an incredibly exciting time for us. We are delivering a lot of new agentic capability, which is going to simply change the scale of which you can drive your campaigns. And I really think you're going to see a step change in efficiency of getting your marketing campaigns out the door with AI and agentic capability. So what are you going to do with all that extra time? Well, the nice thing would be is, you know, hopefully we could start thinking as marketers of doing some higher value added activity, thinking of, well, how well are we really targeting these audiences? And yes, we're bringing two new products to market, a marketing AI builder and a marketing decisioning tool to help you not just build the new AI capability at a new super efficient scale, but then deploy it into your business. And we know from many, many years of deploying AI into multi-channel campaigns that you get seriously large returns from that technology. So you're going to see, hopefully, we've been sharing this, we've been getting some really good reactions from customers. We would love to spend time with you. Come and talk to us this week, and also understand a little bit more about where we're going over the next 2 to 3 years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So, just a little bit about today's agenda. We're going to start with a panel interview with Joey and Scott. I will do the pronunciation correct in a minute, guys. And then we're going to follow with a sports theme. So there'll be plenty of sports themes this week, but I'm a huge soccer fan. Hopefully there's some soccer fans in the room with the World Cup building this year. So we have LAFC and Liverpool on stage with our Chief Marketing Officer, Jen. Rob's then going to give you an update on our roadmap. He's going to do live demos, which will always be interesting, Rob. And then finally, we've got Deloitte and Sri from AWS to finish with a little bit of understanding the landscape of the technology space. So, but plenty on offer. So, look, please give a warm welcome to Joey Proulx. Je vous présente Joey Proulx. Is that okay? And Scott Feldman. Scott.
Test. Am I on too? Can you hear me? Awesome. Hey, good afternoon. Wow, lucky us. We get to be first up on stage today. That's awesome. Now you can hear me, right? Sorry. Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. I have the unenviable position of being the first people to start and kick us off. So I'm going to work with Joey, who's from Canadian Tire Financial Services, and we'll go through a little bit of a use case and some of the things that you guys are doing over at Canadian Tire. So for those that don't know you, because I spend all sorts of time with Canadian Tire and Joey. Can you tell us a little bit about Joey, your role, and Canadian Tire?
Yeah, I've been with Canadian Tire for about 24 years. Actually, in October, I'll have 24 years of service done, and I'm wearing the pin to commemorate that. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate with certain roles I've had. One of my first primary analyst roles was in finance. There I dealt a lot with the issuing and acquiring settlement. And then that led me into the marketing aspect of marketing operations. And now currently I manage the marketing execution team at Canadian Tire Financial Services. I use that term loosely because we say marketing execution, but we support the bank end to end. Within that, marketing campaigns, we do the journeys. Also, with working with a bank, there's a lot of legislations or terms changes that we have to support. We also go through insurance, and we have the knack of building ad hoc processes where you can't get IT development right away. So we're usually the team to build those processes in the interim. We kind of perfect it, and then we come in and provide that to IT for an automated solution. And the fun piece of this is we leverage SaaS ID within all our processes, and it's touching every little single channel. But I don't want to go through it too much because I have a presentation on Wednesday where you can attend.
Shameless plug, gotta love that. Joey, one of the challenges that you face is the bank and the corporation are two separate entities. In Canada, if you're not familiar, we have all sorts of regulation where data cannot be combined across those two separate entities, even though you technically are one. You are operating as two silos. How do you market when you have those limitations? Like, what's that challenge like?
So essentially when we market, so that's the big key. When you're working for a bank, I can't share personal data with the corporation. And what usually happens with that is you don't want to be blasting customers with too many communications, emails. It becomes brand and customer fatigue. So essentially what we're doing is we're building a process where it's more customer centric. And when we come in, it's at acquisition, you start the onboarding journey. So after day 2, communicate to that customer, advise them of our loyalty program. Then we also channel, if they're inactive, we try to promote spend. So there's a lot of journeys. So we start off with our onboarding. Then when you get to a certain tenure, you start off in your engagement, and we offer different offers to that customer. And then there comes the piece where you try to retain that customer. You're seeing no activity. And when you see no activity, well, you think of all these email channels, socials, whatnot. You're not reaching them, so now you're going to direct mailers. You're sending DMs to try to get that customer engaged again.
Canadian Tire also has, and what you're working on, they have one of the larger loyalty programs across Canada called the Triangle Program. Canadian Tire Financial also has a credit card. So sometimes we have people who will sign up for the credit card, but they're not part of the loyalty program. And that's one of the bigger challenges is to get them into Triangle. So how do you bring that data together, aggregate it, so that it's a 360-degree view of that client to get those personalized messages when we're talking about Triangle and the credit card?
No, we have programs where we try to get our loyalty base onto our credit card because of the value prop. Amazing stats is our credit card issues approximately 75% of all the Canadian Tire money across our family of companies. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Canadian Tire or the retail outlet, but it's an iconic brand in Canada. We have something like 1,700 outlets. So essentially what we do is if you have a base loyalty card, during the acquisition process, we say, hey, put in your loyalty number and we'll register it to your Triangle MasterCard, link it. And then that's where it starts the journey. And they come into our marketing programs.
So for those of you that are not familiar with Canadian Tire, let's just throw in a couple statistics for those that are not familiar. With 1,700 outlets across Canada, there is not a single outlet that is further than 15 kilometers, oh my God, 12 miles from any given home or residence across Canada. The loyalty program, as I said, is one of the larger in Canada, and loyalty programs are now locking up all of our retailers. So now we're looking at how does Triangle come in and play on that.
And we're also playing with a lot of partnerships with other major retailers to bring that value back.
Apparently, we got to keep the
Yeah,
mic
I
really
can't
close.
talk too much with my hands.
That's okay. You know, we had a few different questions, and there was one that I kind of wanted to look to close with, which is future state. And we all talk about future state as marketers. Where are we going? Where are we trying to get to? For Canadian Tire and the bank versus corporate, and now that we know that the bank is becoming a little bit more ingrained in corporate, what is or where do you see things going in the next 2 years?
I think it's being more customer-centric and more customer-focused. A lot of times when we market just the general brand, general products, but we're starting now to get into more understanding that customer. If you buy a barbecue, well, what goes with the barbecue? Barbecue utensils. Why not get to that point to say, hey, here's an offer on barbecue utensils. Other things too is when you start seeing this AI and this next generation of marketing technology is understanding the customer from a point where if you're sending emails, well, yeah, the click and opens, but are they fulfilling? You're trying to find channels or best time to reach that customer. So if email's not working, well, why not try a social? Why not try a different channel?
I love that. I'm going to be really polite in the best interest of time. So we had a couple fun questions. When we were actually putting this together, we probably had more laughs with the entire group as we started to talk about some of our first jobs. So we defined first jobs, and I'm going to ask Joey his first job. We ended up breaking down first jobs in two ways. My first job before I finished university and my first job when I did finish university, because for most of us, that was very different jobs. I started out working in a fruit store at 14. Yes, I was slave labor at that point, but wanted to earn a couple extra dollars to go and buy a few things as a young kid. When I got out of university, I ended up staying in the hospitality industry for about 5 or 6 more years. So lived the life of a bartender before I actually got a real job in an office. But you had a couple really interesting ones as well.
Yeah, I was blessed at working at McDonald's. That's my first teenage job.
Woo, McDonald's.
I could still I know how to make a Big Mac, and there's actually a science. I remember I used to always get in trouble where if you put the ketchup before the mustard, there's an actual science to it that it tastes different. So that's what I got to learn. And then my job while I was in university was actually Canadian Tire. I worked in the contact center, thinking I was going to be a teacher and teach the youth, but they reeled me in. Life happens, and went to a different path.
How many years did you spend in the call center and then eventually become full-timer at
It was fairly quick. Within 6 months, I was whenever you have an escalation and they say you want to speak to your supervisor, well, that was me. They would just transfer you. And then within that, again, life happens, things. And I had asked for full-time hours, and instead of giving me full-time hours at the contact center, they sent me to the test department. There you did a bunch of QA, new projects, so I got to test that. And I did that for a good 2-3 years, got to learn quite a bit in that role.
Awesome. We're basically at time, so I want to thank you all for lending us your ears and enjoying a little bit of banter with Joey and myself. We do encourage you, come and see us after the show, during the show, anywhere during the show, today, tomorrow, and don't forget Joey's on stage on Wednesday. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. And we're ahead of time. That's amazing. Right, next up, this is probably my favorite session, soccer related. I can say football. But yeah, looking forward to this. The first of our week of fan engagement discussions. Jen, Ryan, and Helen, welcome to the stage. Thank you.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I am excited for this session. I hope you are too. We're bringing together two clubs, two different leagues, but what I think is so awesome about both of these clubs is their commitment to fan experience. And that commitment extends far beyond thinking about it from a technology perspective. It is this deep understanding of audiences, the desire to continuously learn and evolve. And we're going to learn a lot from these two in the next 20 minutes. So Helen, Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for making the trip out here. It was a haul for both of you. I want to acknowledge that. And there could be
More
some
for
jet
Helen.
lag. Yeah, a little bit longer for Helen, for sure. But why don't we start off, could you each introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your role at the club, and how fan engagement fits into your responsibilities. And Helen, we'll start with you since you've traveled the furthest.
Great, thank you. Yeah, nice to see everyone. So I'm Helen Bennett. I am a Director of Marketing Operations, Insight and Research at Liverpool Football Club. So I sit within our wider marketing function, but I'm effectively responsible for all of our marketing technology, marketing fan data that we hold, and what we do with that data. So the fan engagement element for us is who are those fans, what are they doing, what are they buying, how are they behaving, and why are they behaving that way? But then what we do with that knowledge is great, but if you don't action it, then that's the important element. And then, yeah, some of my team are then responsible for sending those campaigns, developing, engineering those campaigns as well.
So, hey everyone, my name is Ryan Bashara. Been with LAFC for the last 10 years, and as a part of that, I'm our EVP of Revenue and Strategy. So I manage partnerships, ticket sales, and business analytics. And I started the business and data strategy function back in 2019 officially, and before that worked with all of our commercial teams on developing our strategy for all of the different products we sell to our clients across the board, consumer to business. And as a part of that, when we think about consumer data and the journey and what we've done with SaaS, my team on the business and data strategy side actually took over communications and everything related to e-marketing as a part of that about a year ago. And so that coincided with this journey with SaaS, which was perfect because we knew we needed to be that much better, and we were gifted that opportunity to do so at the perfect time in this relationship. So it's been a lot of fun.
Excellent. You know, something across both of your responsibilities is that I admire is the role that marketing is playing in the growth of each of the clubs, growth in the club itself, in the fans. That's fantastic. I've also had the chance to visit both of your clubs, which is an amazing experience, and recommend that for everyone. In truly different cities, different cultures, different leagues. I'd love both of your perspectives on what you see as you've gotten to know each other more. What's different and what's the same across those?
Yeah, so I'll start. For us, the biggest thing is we are focused on our fans' engagement across as personal as we can get to each of them, because they all have different life cycles and journeys with customers, right? You have your starting up fans that are just kids, and then the adults, and multi-generational. Helen is more than that we do, but ultimately, just because of history, we're starting everything from scratch. And that is the most fun part, is getting to have those experiences for people and then trying to find ways to engage with them on a more frequent basis, because ultimately, as the keeper of the stadium and the club, we are their escape. Much like everyone's excited about this panel, we're excited to give that experience to those kids and fans every single day. And so that requires an additional attention to detail into how we can capture their hearts and minds so that it becomes something that they want for generations to come.
Yeah, and I think there's so many similarities in that sort of fan connection that they want with the club. They don't want to be commercialized. They want to feel close to the club in a really authentic way, and that feels similar across all clubs. As Ryan mentioned, I think the core difference really is the historical nature of our club. So it's been around for a long, long time, and so football fandom in the UK particularly is family-wide, and it's generational. So you support who your mum and dad supported, they support who your grandparents supported, and so you're born into a club. So we have a lot of responsibility across those fans that have been fans, those fans that are 80 and those fans that are 14, and trying to service those different relationships and levels of sort of want for digital experience or physical, at Stadium, yeah, really differ. Something else we also spoke about was differences is maybe the global nature, and just how Liverpool now, like on our database, sort of half of our fans are non-UK based. So that comes as a shock to some people, but equally, like we've got fans on our database from the Christmas Islands and the Maldives and like every far-flung location in the world, really. So that comes with different experiences, depending on locality as well.
Different experiences, different expectations that they have for the communication too. Yeah, excellent. That makes it challenging, complex, and a great opportunity. Well, you're both at different phases in your partnership with SAS. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what made you choose to partner with SAS, and what were some of the first challenges or opportunities you wanted to tackle?
Yeah, so for us, it was so key to get to the fan journey of one. That was the biggest thing that we wanted to do. We felt like we were doing a lot of one-off campaigns and not really getting to the individual in terms of their preferences and their cares. Like we were talking about the differences between our clubs. In our case, we have a lot of youthful fans and a lot of young families, a very high presence of children with our attendees. And ultimately, we own the stadium, we have the club, we also have Angel City Football Club. That's our partner and tenant in the stadium too. So there's this diversity that's really interesting because LAFC is actually only a third of the things that happen in our stadium. And as a part of that, we have all these interconnected journeys that then you're marketing a concert to someone that's been to a game. Maybe they've been to both sets of potential games. There's a lot of intricacies that SAS enabled us to take to a new level because of the complexity that they handle on a regular basis and the companies that they work with. And so we were super fortunate to do that, and now we feel like we actually have a much higher ceiling than we ever had before to actually achieve that because the tools are built for that kind of scale and complexity.
Yeah, and for us, I think we've done a lot of work on our Martech estate over the past few years, but we definitely had a gap, and we had a gap in I'm thinking of it in terms of like going from a disconnected state into a more connected state and how we can get there. So we do email marketing in a different place to push in a different place to SMS, for example, and so we weren't connecting those journeys together. And so that's going to be really important for us to get to that personalization point that Ryan spoke about. And we are a business that doesn't just sell tickets. To a similar point, we are a media business. We're a retail business where, we have such a variation of products. That ability to move towards automation and one-to-one personalized experience is really important to allow us to scale.
Excellent. Well, Ryan, since you've been using SAS for a little bit longer, maybe you could share a couple of use cases, some real-world use cases for you where you're driving impact into the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a presentation on this coming up in a couple of days, so won't steal all of it, but as a high level, the biggest things for us were the hyper-personalization, so being able to actually think about when someone enters the database, engages the newsletter, touches us in a way through a ticket purchasing experience, a merchandise buying experience, what is that first action that they are getting, or what is that first engagement they're receiving, and how is it personalized to them based on what they did in that specific moment in action, and then what is from there the follow-up journey that we are able to do for each of those customers as we nurture them, because someone might be, their first engagement might be they bought tickets down by the field and it's a very high spend account versus someone who bought merchandise but is in a different country. You don't want to send the same thing to obviously those two different people, different geographies, different situations, different levels of spend, and also potential as well. And so all those complexities getting into it was really like the big use case was driving what we are giving to each person. And then also the things that Helen mentioned too, the send time optimization was something that could be a lot better and more one-to-one, and ultimately the changing of what content for that individual is so they can tell us more about them, right? Through the surveys they take, through their preferences about who their favorite players are that they want to follow, or what kinds of genres of music they might want to see at the venue. All those things and all those use cases are now possible and we're doing, which were a lot harder to do before.
What strikes me is your commitment to listening to the fan in all of those different channels. And so really impressive. You have to have that commitment to listen before you can really get the data together and act on it. So really exciting. Helen, I'm curious, as you hear that story, what does that make you excited about as you look ahead?
Yeah, I think it's all the things that we're looking to do. So that that personalization, that sort of automation, again, yeah, moving towards the one-to-one relationship, and again, efficiency in that in order to scale. Giving people, it got mentioned in the previous talk, but just that focus on the customer or fan rather than being focused on the product that you're trying to promote, giving people the right message at the right time, and it feels like that's something that we're going to be doing in not too distant future.
For those of us that aren't cool enough to work in sports marketing, I think one of the pieces of inspiration I take from these two is you're talking about fans, but for those of us that are marketing to our customers, customers are our fans. And so every time I talk to you, I get new ideas that I think about that I want to put in place for SaaS as how we think about engaging with our customers. So thank you for continuing to inspire not only within your organization, but you're inspiring those of us around you. Let me wrap up with a few, because if I don't stay on time, I could stay up here for a long time, so you're going to need to probably give me a hook. But let's do a little bit of a lightning round, kind of wrap up with some questions to you guys. I'd love to hear what is, in a few words, how you would describe your fan base. Helen, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm just going to use one word, and it's passionate. Our fans are just the most passionate in the world, we'd say. I'm sure other teams would say the same, but yeah, that's just absolute truth for our fans.
How they sing "You Never Walk Alone" in the beginning of every match is, gives you goosebumps.
You don't have to be a fan to feel that connection. It's just so emotional. Yeah.
So for us, it's hard to beat that, obviously, because we're only 10 years old. But our fans definitely would say "force for good." That is our 3 words, I'd say, for us. And the reason for that is because while we are young, they care deeply about the community around them and the causes that are impacting their lives on a day-to-day basis, whether it's economic, political, or just social, across all of that. And being in LA especially, we're also hypersensitive to that, and there's always different things going on in our city. And the supporters, the 3252 as they're called, adds up to 12th man, and that's how many seats are in the section, just for context. They are the heartbeat of that in multiple ways than one. One, they have all these chants and songs that they created, and we didn't have to teach them to do or anything like that. It was fully done by them, and we inspire and push them to do that even more with how the club gives back to them. But just as much, they think about what causes and community events they should be doing, and we support them in that. And our fans holistically outside of the 3252 see that and view that and then want to come to more matches. So that force for good aspect fuels the next generation and care about the brand.
Excellent. I'm going to do a different twist on the job question for earlier. If you weren't doing this job, what would you be doing? Helen.
I feel like this is a very boring answer, but I think I'd be in marketing, just in a different industry. So I think football gives that connection, that real life connection. It's something that people are really excited about, which makes this job great. But I think I'd just be marketing somewhere else.
You're a marketer at heart.
I am.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Ryan, how about you?
So if sports didn't exist and I had to do something else, probably the most fun that I've had outside of being a part of a winning club and all those things in very short infancy is being able to build a stadium from scratch, being a part of that creation journey. So for me, it would be architecture and like real estate development specifically would be just being able to create things that people get to enjoy, have experiences with, and feel that connection to is something that's really special. And if sports didn't exist, that would be it for me.
All right. Toughest question of the panel. Favorite game day food?
I think the British answer to that has got to be a pie and a pint. But then I thought, do I need to translate the pie thing? Because it's not a sweet pie. Yeah, it's like a meat pie. But that's such a typical match day food, so yeah.
Yeah. Very LA for me, but it would be a King Sawine slider, an Al Pastor taco, and a Modelo.
Fantastic. I'm seeing a theme here. A pint, Modelo. Very nice, very nice. Helen and Ryan, thank you so much for your partnership. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your insights and really inspiring us all. We're not done in these conversations. You're going to get to hear more from Liverpool on main stage later this week, and then you're going to hear Ryan in one of the breakout sessions too. So I encourage you to attend those to get really more pragmatic about how they're applying SaaS within their organization. So thank you both. I'm going to turn it back over to Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Put your hands up if you've had a meat pie. Oh, there's more than that's pretty good. No, yeah, no, exactly. And as Rob's setting up, yeah, I just wanted to pick up on something that Helen was saying about in the UK, you sort of pass on your sports, your football team to your children. It's kind of a sort of passing of rights. Unfortunately, my father grew up in North London and was a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And if you want to have a look at the UK Premier League table at the moment, Helen's probably laughing at this point, but for the first time in, I think, probably half a century, I don't think Tottenham are going to be in the Premier League next season. So, but I did my best when my son was growing up to buy him the Tottenham Hotspur outfits, and guess what? He's a Man United fan, so something went totally wrong. But actually, I feel better for him now than having to say in public that I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan. So anyway, at least when I come to Liverpool, we won't be competing in the Premier League together. That's all I can say, Helen. So thank you. Are you ready? I believe so. Good. I'm handing over to Mr. Taylor.
I'm going to try this as well. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see some friendly faces. And first time for the analysts, so shout out to those guys over there. I wanted to start off by just talking and asking us a simple question. And that really is when you or your marketing team actually had spare time or spare capacity. Spare time to step back. Spare time to think. Maybe step back and actually pick something, an idea out of the backlog and start to run with that and experiment with that. And sadly, I think for most marketing teams, not just marketing, I see that with my own team in product, is that sadly people don't have the time. And why is that? And just other things which are going on. So where this goes really is that we need that time, because where we're going from a MarTech era, it's all going to be about thinking rather than just doing. What do I mean by that? If I think about the last 20 years in the digital era, we've essentially had tools and software which has collected data. We've had tools which have allowed us to create more campaign and execute more campaigns. It's allowed us to adopt more channels as we go along. But it's also allowed us to do more automation of those channels. And really, that's mean that marketers have turned into operators. Now, that's not a marketing fault, that's a structural issue. What do I mean by that? Is that, well, for everything we have done in terms of those tools in the digital era, we've built our teams around those tools and those processes. So therefore, we need to get to a stage where marketers can start thinking again and start to strategize. So I think about where we're going, and you can either call it the intelligence era or the agentic era, but there's definitely a shift that we're seeing, and it's already here. So it's not about tools and systems that collect data. It's going to be about tools that actually understand the data as well as collecting it. It's not going to be about executing campaigns. It's going to be about those systems making decisions for us. It's not going to be about automation of those campaigns. It's going to be about those pursuing goals and an optimization for that. And really that means that marketers have to be more of strategists going forward. Now, this era is moving on very quickly, and this is a slide from last year's, which was pretty much to the week in terms of what we did. And we showcased to you our new scheduled journeys capability, which came out, as you see, general availability on the 7th of May. It was actually at the conference. And we also showed you some of our Copilot stuff, which is all about how you can use your documentation and those kind of things. So I really want to show you where we're going. So this is moving on from an era perspective, but luckily for you and for me, our engineering team are moving very quickly as well. So let me quickly just show you where we're up to and what we've been working on. Can we get this one? Ah, perfect. So you can see here, this is kind of a journey. I can't find my cursor, but there we go. Why is that not working? I'll take that out. There we go. So this is what we showed you last year in terms of our journey capability, the ability to orchestrate across. We have a Snowflake audience, so therefore our ability, composability to do that, and then provide that across all those different channels. But building these journeys takes a lot of time and effort. And we've had a few people say, well, how can you make that easier? Well, let me show you. If I just quickly come across to this one, and where we have our Copilot, we started to build something called a journey agent, which will help in this capability. Now, if you've seen last year's, you'll see that we can type in certain things and we could build journeys. But we could also have this capability of actually uploading. Maybe it's a certain image that we can utilize. Maybe it's a document of a brief. Maybe it's one of our competitors' screenshots that we can just take and utilize in there as well. But I'm going to take in this onboard journey, which I did on a white screen, and I just scribbled in my handwriting here. I'm just going to go and upload that in. And I'm going to say, create me a journey. Now the system will try and understand what I've just said there and looked at my information, but this is now general availability. All our customers have this as of last week. We rolled it out across the world, all our world customers. And you can see here, straight away, it's interpreted what it wants to see, and I'm going to, from a human in the loop at the stage, this moment, I'm going to approve the plan. Now, as part of this agent, there are some other things that it can do. So it can search all the audiences out there. It can search for tasks. You can ask it questions. What needs some of my time at the moment? At the moment, it's just going to go ahead and build me. Now, in this demo, this is the awkward bit because it takes about 20 seconds or so. But I feel like I need some orchestral music or something just to show the value of this when it starts building it out for us. So straight away, you can see there that it's actually found in the system an audience called onboarding. And then as you can see there, it's going to build out that journey for me in front of your eyes. Pretty cool. Now we'll just wait a second and as it carries on. And then we'll look at what it's done for us. As I said, the awkward bit. I didn't think it would be this awkward. I'm sure the developers in the room are not there. No, I know. So as you can see, while it is just finishing off, you can see I didn't put in a wait node. So you can see it's put that in for me. And here we are, you can see here. So it said, I've created an onboarding journey. I've found an audience, and it's got 1,092 members in it. Great. I've done the schedule that you asked and the goal conversion. And I've actually made some decisions for you. So I've put a wait node in there because I didn't do one. And it's also said, well, you didn't tell me what these others were. So I'm just going to put some placeholders in for you. And I have this nice view of being able to review and see what that's done for me. So yeah, you can see it's put the conversion rate in for me. It's put the purpose. It's put in the holdout control groups and the exit delays. And it's also set the schedule. So really nice in terms of that kind of capability. But what if I could also say, provide me some recommendations for the journey. As I said, this is fully general available. So if you have this, it should be all available and you can start to utilize this as well. So here again, you'll just see it's going to understand all its knowledge base and it's going to actually give us some recommendations of what we can do based on what it knows. Again, a little bit of an awkward moment. I could do. And there you go, you can see. So it's given me some information about what I could do with the journey structure, the weight nodes, maybe the holdout control groups, all that kind of stuff that it provides some information. And you can continue to have conversations with it and start to utilize it. Obviously, this is not done and dusted. I can go in here and change this if I wanted to. So I could go and say, no, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to wait a week. So it's all fully usable within the system. So, from our strategy from Agentic, we've seen there the journey one, but where we see the vision is a multi-agent capability to really help the marketers in terms of their optimization. So we've provided you the journey agent and the search agent. I think Mike's also given a shameless plug, but if you can, go and see Mac and Cameron's demos, and Miss Kate Parker at the back will be showing, I want to give it away, but one of the other agents on main stage tomorrow as well. So you'll see the next iteration of where we're going, and really bringing that together in terms of multi-agents all working for the good of the marketer. So this really does talk about a change, a strategic shift. So execution being handled by agents, to really this time where marketers can start to focus on value. Now that value is subjective. That could be things like experimentation. It could be brand. It could be anything in terms of just general planning. But at SAS, we see those two kind of real values is to start looking at providing AI-targeted models for better customer insight, as well as also decision intelligence to start optimizing in real time the customer experience. Now, we're building these and we're bringing these to market. We've been working with some early adopters, and we are on track to ask more customers or offer this to more customers on the 1st of July this year, which is pretty exciting for us. But we've done two things here. We're building this for marketers, and hopefully you'll see that when I show you this, but also we're designed for speed to value. What do I mean by that? We want marketers to get the value, get the scale, and start to utilize this as soon as possible and get the value of what that is. So let me just grab in here. Let me just refresh my browser. And let me show you what I mean by those two things. So we're going to start off by showing marketing AI. And as I said, it really is about empowering the marketer to be able to do AI models within their targeting and utilize that as we go along. Now, first of all, I wanted to talk about some of the kind of key capabilities that we have for marketing AI. Like everything in 360, we have kind of a hybrid architecture. What do I mean by that? Software as a service where you get all the value of constant features coming, but the actual workload of the data sits in your environment. So we do not move that data. We do not want to move data into our environment. We want it to stay there. That means you have control, you have governance of your data. Now this also brings us to one of the key differentiators of what we see in this product. Because we're not copying that data, it means we can use all your data. There's no need for us to start mapping 50 variables that we think might be predictive. No, we can utilize your entire customer base, whether that's 100 variables, 1,000 variables, 2,000 variables. The value is in your data, and your data is unique and predictive. So therefore, this opportunity to provide this capability for all your data really does set us apart in terms of where we want to go. And that brings me to my first kind of persona, and this is the kind of data persona. So this is a one-off capability that you have to do, and generally this is done by a data engineer, a data scientist, or in a couple of occasions I've had, it's the IT person who reluctantly said they had to go and look after the marketing CRM database. But they have a one-off thing that they have to do, and that is to build recipes. And as you'd expect, a recipe is really bringing together the ingredients. Now, the second thing that we've done in terms of this capability is we're doing the hard bit, and that is all the data preparation to create the AI model. Not just the fancy thing at the end, which gives you the scores, but the real hard data prep that we have. So in this case, we need to build out that. So I'm going to go into a churn recipe, and just show you some of that high-level view. So we can see we've got an objective, we want to do a churn, and we can also see some data that we've actually got in here. You can see I've got 4 tables from Snowflake, but we could add, and we will add more data sources as we go along. So once we've got that, again, because this is all being done on your data and we want to try and really mitigate the need for IT help and data help, you can see I can simply start joining those tables together in a nice simple UI. But again, we'd expect a data engineer to understand that and do that kind of capability. The next area is churn predictors. We then do some level of data cleansing and also creating transformations, calculations to be utilized in the AI model. Now, we will give you some defaults, but you can happily go in there and add some more as you go along. Now, I don't want to go too much because Mr. Steve Hill, our VP of R&D, will be doing a full demo tomorrow, I think, tomorrow at lunchtime. So he'll go into the detail of every single step and how this physically works. But the one I did want to finish off in terms of this is this ability to do timeframes. And again, I think this really sets us apart. You can see here that I'm creating this recipe to actually talk about, I want to do a churn over 1 month. How about if I did 3 data sets? So I want to see churn over 1 month. I want to see who's likely to churn over 2 months, 3 months. Straight away, we started to scale in terms of that marketing capability to get kind of true targeting out there. So let me now switch to the marketing persona. And going back to what we wanted, we want to make this very simple for the marketer to use. So I'm going to go ahead and build out a new project. You can see these are all the projects which have been set up for me, all the recipes. And I'm just going to go and take this likelihood to churn. And again, you can firstly see the objective, but you can also see those tables that we created. Now, in this example, I've got churn over 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, all the way up to 5. And again, where this really scales is that I can start doing filters. So I might want to do a 1 month churn for credit card. I may want to do a 3 month churn for loans, maybe a 6 month for mortgages. From a retail perspective, I might want to do a 2 month churn for electrical goods or a 4 month churn for fashion, those kind of things. Straight away, you can see the scale and the opportunity for marketers to get AI-targeted results for those individually really, really starts to gain weight in terms of where we'd go. So let me go down this here. So I'm just going to take a 2 month churn. I then have this opportunity to optimize what I want to do. And again, we've put these nice, friendly explanations of what it is. But really, it's about being able to define what we want to optimize. Again, we've tried to use some marketing language and again, some explanations. Now, underneath all of these sit data science terms. But we want to say, well, I just want to maximize profitability, or I just want to maximize revenue, or really, I just want to be right all the time in terms of the most I can be. So we have that opportunity there, and then I can really just go ahead and start training that model. Now again, all this data that we have done sits in your environment. So we're creating and building out that recipe. We will then run a machine learning model tournament to be able to say which is best, and then we'll provide that back into the system for you to utilize. Now, one of the key things as well is, yes, we've got to make this valuable for marketers, but we also want visibility and explainability. Partly because that is the way SaaS is in terms of ethical AI and trust, but also black box analytics doesn't really help marketers really understand what they're doing. So here you can see, very simply, not likely to churn are very likely to churn. And you can see we've decided, the model has said, the cutoff could be 28. Now I might know a little bit more and want to be a little bit more cautious of making sure I go to less people, so I can go ahead and change that. If I go down here, you'll start to see some very simplistic understandings, but we also want to make sure we get the credibility of the data scientists as well in terms of what we've got. So you can see the model validation. It's looking good. We can also use GenAI to explain this from a marketing term. What is this showing us? And then again, just showing some simple terms. how often we were right, 87%, that seems pretty good. How often are we confident? Well, that's pretty good too. All the way down to seeing the explainability of which variables are making up this model. Again, it's about explainability, it's about visibility, it's about being able to be truly trusting what we're providing for you. And again, Steve will go into a lot more detail about this in terms of what we can do here, but I really want to just show that next step of being able to output that. So once we've got that, we know it's quite hard to start activating some of this data. Well, how about we can just very quickly put it into an audience, which could then be utilized in that journey that we showed before. Or maybe I push that into our marketing decisioning, the churn model or a next best action model. So that could be utilized for inbound communications to be able to do in real time to understand and optimize those messages for those individuals. And then finally, the CSV will push that back so you can utilize that across other tools if you want to do that as well. So we talked a little bit there about marketing decisioning, and let's just go ahead and show that as well. So marketing decisioning, again, is something that we are delivering for July the 1st, and that will be available for customers. And really, again, it's about those marketing and those business-friendly needs, and also giving those kind of levers that businesses can utilize. You can see here from a high level, I've got a next best action decision running. We can see how many messages or actions or experiences that we have provided. And probably the most important thing, are we on target? Because that's probably one of the key things that we need to look out for. But you can also see how well things are performing. So you can see some of the different actions and offers that are there, all the way down to performance of channels. Now, being totally honest and transparent, this right-hand side, where we see the true value, is stuff that we're still building in engineering. But this is where we start to optimize, and we're using AI to do some of that. So for example, we can see here that the system has said, well, you've got this contact limit of 5. Well, if we change that to 6, we can really increase your reach by 16%. So it's about providing those AI insights to help and provide business levers. The business lever we see the most and hear of is, I don't care what the model says. My boss's boss has said that we need to sell more of these today. So I have the ability to just go in and change that lever and push that to one single or a multiple different ones. So that brings me into the flow, and we'll very quickly go through that flow. And as you'd expect, it's very business focused. Next best action is all about qualification. Are you eligible for certain things? And you can see here, I'm just going to say, you've got to be eligible, you've got to be an existing customer, and you've got to be opted into marketing. Very good. But I also see the data that's coming in the event. But again, similar to marketing AI, similar to our audience capability, we have access to your customer data, which resides in your environment, under your governance, under your control. Now again, we're building Gen AI and capability in here. So therefore, I can just describe that. But longer term, we'll also see an agent here to be able to do some of this for you. We'll also walk through this little bit as well. So action assignments. At the moment, I have 4 kind of key types of actions or offers that I have. Onboarding, all the way down to cross-sell. And again, it's all about, are they eligible for this? And then if they are eligible, which ones of these specifically have they had? Now, all these offers, you can add business value, you can add all this capability to see which one we can show. But the key here is this arbitration one. This is where we say, of all the things that are available to you, what should I show in the moment, at the time, based on everything we know in terms of the behavior? And we have multiple different methods at the moment. As I said, it could just be on pure business value and revenue. It could be on certain scoring table from that marketing AI. You could bring that in and just utilize that. Or we can do certain custom formulas. Maybe let's just say here that I have high-value customers that I can see within my data. Well, if that happens, I want to push them directly to a certain, let's say, wealth advisory invite. So I'm going to make sure that that gets more relevance and more weighting, so therefore they would provide that as well. And that really is kind of the whole process in terms of what we want to do, all the way down. And again, the nicest thing here, you get the software as a service features, but this ability, very simply, to go ahead
and push this into your environment so it's running next to your data, next to where we want it to work. And you can see that's now been pushed down and you start to utilize that as it is. So let me go back to my slides. I'm looking at my time. Sorry, Mike, you're going to have to do a lot more. So just a few minutes on what else is coming, and I think that's key. And if we think about it, we normally talk about audiences, journeys, and destinations. They're kind of the core of what we're doing. Now, happy to speak to all of you, come and speak to anyone in the team about these we have. But I wanted to just pull out a few in terms of the ones which are pretty exciting in terms of where we're going. Obviously, the agentic stuff will continue. Come and talk to us about that. Give us your insights of what you want to see there and feedback. But I wanted to start with immediate things. The nice thing is we have something coming out on Wednesday. So the scheduled journey capability, we have something called Smart Path Testing. This is the ability to have up to 5 different paths and therefore doing experimentations on that, which then gives you the automatic winner. So that is coming out on Wednesday. And that is the ability to start doing more kind of insight and optimization directly in the tool. Now, we will build on top of that with some adaptive learning and those kind of capabilities as we see the value from our customers. I also want to talk about we're still doing Gen AI in the tool. Obviously, the agentic thing is a way. People are starting to use it, but they still also want to see capability of creating content directly into the tool. So you can see there, Push has already been released, April the 8th, and SMS is expected to be able to create you content for your SMSs on May the 15th as well. Looking further ahead, audience profiles. So obviously we bring everything into an audience which can start some certain things, and you start to see profiles of what that audience looks like. So in this case, hopefully you can see the reachability and validity. How many of those had emails which are valid? How many have not opted out? How many do we have device IDs that we could actively send push notifications in? So this starts to provide you a bit more insight into that audience and how you can negotiate. And obviously we'd want that then to be part of the journey, which can get automatically selected. You'll also see profiles of what that audience looks like. And again, this will be an iterative process. We will then start to talk about how they convert, how well they're doing in terms of audiences, which again can be utilized in there. The other thing that we get asked a lot of is this ability to do a global contact policy management at execution time. So we have customers sending out many different outbound capabilities, but at time of execution, tell me, am I allowed to, or do I need to suppress this because I've hit certain rules? You can see a high-level individual policy, and then you can also see channel-specific ones as well, even though those numbers don't really make sense. I'm sure Steve's looking, but that's just a figure thing that we're working on. And then finally, the one which, again, is getting a lot of customers wanting us to do this. And this is the Journey Export Action Node, which is kind of a direct task if the customers are out there. Now, this is the ability to take an audience and export it into your environment and then run post-process nodes. That could be to create QR codes or unique campaign codes, or maybe send that to another system that can then utilize that data. Going slightly off tangent, the export node, Steve hates the name. So if anybody has better names for that, please come and speak to us. We really do need to do better at our naming conventions. So now, those are kind of the key things. And then finally, I'll just leave you with this. This is not for this year. It might not be for next year. But I wanted to give you an idea of where we see this agentic kind of flow. Now, hopefully you can see this at the top. We can see some marketing metrics. We can see return on ad spend. We can see ROMI. We can see lift. We can see revenue, new customers. Underneath that, we potentially can start to see the agents which are running, as well as a confidence level. How well are they performing? How well are they sending something out to a human to be able to do that? Underneath that, potentially we could see some agent activity. They've launched 3 journeys, or they've reallocated some spend into a different campaign. Where does the marketer fit in here? Well, it's all about being able to set floors and allocation in terms of budget, as well as setting the constraints that you want to do from a strategic perspective. as well as being able to authorize where the agent has gone outside its barriers of authority. So we can see here, it's seen new opportunities. Do you authorize this so it's going to spend some money? Do you want to decline it? We see a potential clash between some brand capability, some marketing, and some other things. So this way of where we can actually start to control and manage that entire agent kind of force. I shouldn't say agent force, that's terrible. So I want to leave you with this final kind of, I started with a question, I want to finish with a thought. And look, the MarTech industry is moving fast, and so is technology. But good news is, so are we. Quite literally, in fact, because you can hopefully see that our logo is on this car. So we are supporting a young gentleman whose dream is to get to Le Mans 24 and race there. But really, there are so many similarities between racing and MarTech, but this really is the time that we need to stop, slow down, think, and just see where the marketer of today and what that looks like for the marketer tomorrow. Thank you. There, it won't work just yet.
Am I on? Am I on? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rob. I'd never actually seen that last slide of the vision, so I heard him say next year that they're going to demonstrate that live. Is that what I heard you? Did we all hear that?
No.
Yes, I think so. There's a nice challenge for our product and engineering leadership in the room. Listen, we have a number of, as well as customers in the room, we have a number of partners in here. And I just want to do a special shout out to our partners. We are incredibly reliant now on our partner network to be able to help not only deliver these kind of capabilities Rob's been showing to our customers, but also to extend those capabilities. I think the power of this agentic world and connecting not just one set of technology agents together with others is just going to really change the game. I've seen some incredibly exciting work. I would firstly like to call out the partnership that we've had with AWS from a technology perspective has been incredible. And the ability for us to innovate at the pace we're innovating is because of the foundation behind the scenes that we have with the team at AWS. So we are leveraging their Bedrock capability for our agent framework. And it's been really thoughtfully done with the help of the AWS team and us working together. So we'd love to go into more detail and just explain how that works. The other thing I saw this week is a really powerful demonstration where one of our partners is going to be showing how to connect an agent to create the brief into 360 to actually generate the journey. And I'm going to save that and not speak too much more because I'm sure he's going to talk about it on stage. So first I'm going to say John's going to come up, but Sri from AWS, where are you? Oh, you're just in front of me. And Julio, I can see you over the other side. Please come to stage. Thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our last session, so bear with us, stick with us. So honored to have two of our partners here on stage. I'm serving as the moderator for this session, so I'm just going to throw all the hard questions to them, and they're going to answer them. So I am going to jump right into it. So as we were putting this together, we titled this session "Marketing in a New Era: Agility, Intelligence, and Automation." And really, as we think about, the pace of AI, the pace of technology change, right? There are a lot of things that, are really changing at a rapid rate. So, legacy tools, fragmented systems, they're really impeding innovation and change, right? And so, to outpace the competition, right, guys, we've got to, think about how we accelerate investments in AI, how we simplify operations and how we really, instill automation into a lot of things that we're doing. So with that, I'm going to jump into our questions. First off, let's start with some introductions. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are, your title, what you do at AWS and Deloitte.
Does this work? Yep. Can you hear? Fantastic. My name is Sri Raghavan. I am part of what's called the Partner Enterprise Strategy at AWS. What actually it means is that as a specialist in the data analytics and now increasingly AI organization, I work with partners to do two things. One is to integrate partner solutions into AWS first-party services, like the Bedrocks of the world, the Redshifts of the world, S3, EC2, what have you. And I'm responsible for enabling all the design integrations that happen. The second part of my story is that I work with partners to be able to craft GTM programs so that we can actually take the joint solutions to market. And a huge shout out to folks like Robert Labori, Josh Erickson, of course, the great Kevin Go, who's been a part of this partnership. So thank you very much. But I just, if you wouldn't mind a little bit of latitude, I would like to say thank you very much to SAS. This is by far my favorite conference every year. I come here. Thanks for inviting me. I started using SAS and the mainframe systems back, I'm dating myself, when I used to be a graduate student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Go Badgers, by the way. Screw Michigan. And we used to actually access all of the SAS, the base SAS function through what we used to call on the mainframe called JCL. And we used to call it Job Control Language. We used to call it JCL, the language of love. But that was different times and a lot of bad drinks later. But happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Hello, everyone. And thanks to SAS for having us. And Sri, we must have done a good job last year because I find that both of us are up here again.
I couldn't believe it.
And that did you always have to allocate the blocks and all that stuff? Yes, I remember those days. Julio Tavares, work for Deloitte in the department's called Marketing as a Service. And our goal is to try and help customers get to market the types of capabilities that they have. And sometimes it makes sense to invest and build in certain capabilities, and other times you partially need to invest in certain things, and there becomes a time where you have to basically make the decision, do you out certain components, do you build certain components, and you build an ecosystem of capabilities. We come in when you have made a decision to build out certain aspects of your infrastructure, but want to outsource other aspects, and then we sort of collect those types of pieces, and we sort of complement. We become part of your ecosystem, like a puzzle. And so we're in the business of helping you elevate that entire ecosystem of yours. And we want to elevate the performance. We want to elevate what you add into it. So when we come in and we partner with you, we're bringing in ideas on technology, on data, on techniques, best practices. So we're not just operating the technology and working with our technology partners, we're also bringing in our best practices and what we see works best in the industry, and we bring that to the table.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to start with a really broad question, and I don't know if there's a single answer to this question, but let's see where we go with this one. So last 2 to 3 years in marketing technology, we've seen a lot of change. What's been the biggest change in your eyes? We'll start with you, Julio, and then move over to Sri.
Probably some of the biggest changes is how you actually are engaging with the technology itself. And AI has been probably the real large impact that I'm seeing across a lot of the marketing world. We saw it in the agencies first, and one of the things that I've noticed across the world is there is a massive consolidation of marketing agencies right across the world. And a lot of the smaller agencies now are becoming co-owned by larger holdcos. And the reason why that's happening is that AI is coming in to take over a lot of the marketing processes that typically were in agencies. And so you're starting to see agentic to agentic implementations. And one of the things that we are encouraging our clients to do is actually start to implement AI as soon as possible. And the more that you can implement, the faster you can implement, the better it is. It might seem scary at first, but actually Being able to start looking at AI, not just as a smart prompt, but actually as an agentic flow, and then agentic to agentic flows. And we have those capabilities now. It's sometimes easier said than done, but once you start doing it, you got to start experiencing it, it starts to revolutionize the speed at which you can get something out the door. And it's not something you can do in a classroom, it's something you have to experience, something you have to implement. And once you implement and test and continually renew, I think that's going to accelerate the effectiveness of your ability to execute, but more importantly, free up time, and we just heard this, free up time to strategize, to provide that hyper-personalization we all want. All of those different things now are starting to come within grasp. And it's really this AI capability that we just saw a little while ago.
Yeah, so I think that was a very well articulated answer, and I'm going to piggyback off that by saying that AI is now the norm. It's the expectation, not the exception, which was until about 2 years ago, you could say that it was actually the exception. So I don't want to belabor the point, but that's there. But there are a couple of things, important things that have happened. One is, of course, the buyer has become incredibly sophisticated. Today, they're looking, because we have a Cambrian explosion of tools, right? There are all kinds of AI tools available for content development and all kinds of other capabilities, including being able to develop agents. For instance, AWS has got Bedrock Agent Core, and we've got different tools for which we can build agents. So I think buyers have become extremely sophisticated, but because of the sophistication, a lot of tools have also been exposed to the buyers. Now, what happens because of that is there is now a little bit of a trust deficit because content is being developed at a frenetic pace by different constituencies across organizations. So now the question becomes, who actually trusts the content? So trust is becoming a big issue that we're seeing quite substantively and substantially across all of the customers that we speak with on a regular basis. The first question that always keeps getting asked is, how can I trust the content that comes out of your tools? How can I trust the agents who are actually being part of the orchestration journey and so on? So these are some things which we've seen quite a bit of, and we're actually seeing some of the momentous changes happening with the tools, with the people who are experiencing the tools, with the kinds of content that is being curated, and of course, all of the explainability that needs to be added to all of the content that's being created across all the different tools and capabilities we have. This is something which we see on a regular basis across our customers and partners.
Yeah, trust and transparency, obviously a huge message, one that we're certainly focusing on throughout the week. So, I've got to ask you a question about agentic AI, right?
No, not really.
No, we have to, I'm sorry. Agentic AI is only as good as the data and the decisioning that's underneath it, right? So when you guys talk to brands, organizations, other partners, who's actually ready and what separates the stacks that will scale from the ones that will fall flat? Start with you, Sri.
Okay. To me, the whole agentic AI conversation has to happen in 3 prongs. One is a data layer, one is a decisioning layer, and the third is an orchestration layer. You need all 3 to happen in consort, speaking to each other for this to happen. And there are organizations which struggle with this quite extensively. On the data side, you have to worry about, I talked about a Cambrian explosion of tools, right? Now you also have a Cambrian explosion of data. You have data which is structured, unstructured, semi-structured, but you also now have to worry about vectorization of the data. You have vector databases all over the place. So you need to bring all of these things together in a consistent format. So the data layer is extremely important. And for you to be consistent across the vast number of sources which you have to access to be able to run all your decisions through. So that's number one. The second part of this, of course, the rationalization and the decision-making process, which has to be done within certain guardrails. We have a lot of customers, as you can imagine, that we speak to in Europe, which has got very strict GDPR regulations. And even within Europe, there's specific countries, particularly in the Nordics, which have extremely tight processes around what kinds of data you can use to be able to make what kinds of decisions. So decision making at that level is not just a question of having good data, but also in terms of how well you're able to function within certain guidelines that you have in place. The third aspect of it is relatively newer, which is why your question is important around agentic AI, is the whole idea of agents talking to each other. So which means you need to maintain things like states, right? Atomicity is very important. So what happens if your entire system just collapses in the middle? It's fine for your systems to actually work well during a POC. Great, they talk to each other, and I'm sure everybody in this room has had a very successful POC which doesn't get translated very well into production. This happens, if you've been in the engineering side of the business like I have, this happens on a regular basis. But you cannot afford that to happen, right? You need atomicity, so which means, let's say the system falls, you need to maintain state where the agent comes back and is able to pick up from where it's left off. So things like that are very important. Very few stacks do it. Now, I will say that SAS is one of the few companies that we've seen which actually goes up and down that stack. In fact, today's product demonstration showed us that in terms of how the data is being picked up, how the decisions are being made, how the decisions are being made with explainability and within the guidelines, as well as how it actually is able to talk across the different processes from the standpoint of collecting the data all the way towards making a decision. That, ladies and gentlemen, to me, is a kind of stack that we want to be able to show to the marketplace. And very, very few organizations have it. Congratulations to the SAS team for actually delivering that, by the way.
Thank you. Congratulations, guys. Julia, what would you add?
I just want to build on that, but actually I want to connect it to the answer to your previous question as well that you answered, is that you want to start where we tend to want to avoid, and that's in governance. Because like Sri just talked about the data, the rules and everything, but if you avoid the governance and you go down too far, somebody guaranteed, whether it's in compliance or legal or somewhere, is going to start questioning the validity of this and the risk that this brings to the table. Better off starting to think about that right up front and saying, what are the risks that everybody is going to be worried about? How do we mitigate those risks? And then start to build the data inputs, screening the data inputs, putting in the guardrails, making sure you have the right rules. And then as that comes through, everybody begins to get more confidence. Legal, compliance, everybody starts to have, and companies that start in the place that nobody wants to talk about and deal with, especially us as marketers. I tried to avoid compliance and legal my entire life, but that doesn't work. They end up getting you one way or the other before the campaign gets out, is start up front. And you start up front, everybody starts to fall in line and it becomes better. And especially if we're talking about getting from agentic to agentic, that's where people are right now. So if you're not in the agentic to agentic thinking stage of how you're orchestrating that, that's now becoming problematic because now you're behind best practices. And I agree with you, SAS gives you the ability to openly know what's happening to the data, which is going to give compliance and a lot of other organizations a comfort level to say, we understand what's happening, here's the evidence, here's the proof, here are the flows. If you can do that and you can introduce these structures, you're going to be able to have that hockey stick effect, as us Canadians tend to talk about, because of hockey. And, it's good. I don't understand how you guys have been winning so many Stanley Cups all these years, and we invented the game. But anyway, that's another conversation. But it is the governance piece. That's the piece that's very important for us.
Yeah, I think that, as decisioning and orchestration becomes kind of that new battleground in the MarTech stack, right, that middle layer, doing the dirty work of governance is absolutely critical. So, yeah, well spoken. So, next question. Many organizations are modernizing their MarTech ecosystems, but they can miss important aspects for success. What should organizations consider when building their ecosystems from a people, process, and technology point of view? Sri, I'll pass this one to you first.
Okay. So in terms of the people, one of the first things that I typically, when I speak to organizations, companies in particular, I tell them is, look, for MarTech to be effective, you need to have a MarTech Center of Excellence. I think it helps a lot because having that Center of Excellence distills all the best practices that you're going to employ, both from the standpoint of data, from the standpoint of technology, from the standpoint of people, together in one centralized location. Having a head who oversees that, I think, is extremely important, number one. In terms of people, I think, and this is, you know, in my career, I've seen this, right? Typically what happens when you're in a marketing organization, you actually borrow the tech people from the engineering side. And I think, you know, we should go beyond that. It is very important for technology people as well as technical processes to be embedded as part of the marketing organization. I think you need to have marketers who are also specialists in machine learning technologies or large language models or whatever be the vernacular of today. That has to be something which is embedded in the marketing organization as a composite whole. It can't be, let's borrow from engineering as and when they're available. That's part of the people side of the business that needs to be reformed, for lack of a better word. In terms of processes, there are certain things which are very important. Julio actually talked about it, which I loved, which is, you know, if you're trying to do something, set up the rules properly up front, the governance rules, or have a clear KPI, or map out the customer journey upfront as much as you can, because a customer journey, if you're not able to map it out in the next, which is why I loved Rob's presentation, right? Because there's a lot of things that he talked about in terms of what's coming up, which is precisely going to the direction of figuring out where your customers are going to be in the next couple of years and trying to actually, at AWS we have this principle called working backwards. And that's precisely the idea behind it, which is, you know, have an end state in mind, which is not obviously today, but in the future, for you to actually work backwards and create the right kinds of processes. The last bit, in terms of technology, is start thinking about composability, because you cannot build a tech system which is a monolith. You can't say SaaS is going to be in the market or insert your company where all of the tools, all of the capabilities, all of the data is going to be sourced internally. It's impossible, because there are different tools which are meant for different purposes, which are bespoke tools. And so that composability aspect of it, where you bring together the integration of the different tools across the landscape, becomes very important. But that doesn't mean you just, you know, sit at home one day and figure out, hey, I need the MCP server from there, I need the A2A protocol from there, I need the database from there, just because, you know, these are all the popular brands that you think of. To do it in a composable manner, you need to actually think through the customer journey, which comes first, and then figure out what the underpinning technology is. So this is my unbelievably long-winded way of answering a question. I apologize, but
It's a good answer. I really like your call out on having AI engineering embedded within the marketing organization. I think that's I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future. Julia, what would you add?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to add other than it is really about the people who are leveraging the technology. And whatever you're doing, you need to see that their world is more complex, and SaaS is a great tool and everything, but there's other aspects of the process that don't involve SaaS. And so you need to look at the entire process. And yeah, so in Wednesday, I think I'm going to introduce one idea of how you can introduce the upfront process that a marketer has to go through that can actually fit in nicely into what SaaS is doing. And then you have an agentic to agentic, system to system communication. And the reason why you have to think that way is because your metrics at the beginning is, how are you freeing up people to actually be able to be creative, to be strategic, and to respond to market conditions? Because there are a lot of barriers because of compliance and technology, and everybody's on a waiting list to get things done. Is how do you speed that up? And how do you get that cycling through of the capabilities that marketers are today stymied by and frustrated by? And the common tool that a lot of marketers go to is they just go to the agency and say, do this for me, right? It's the common thing. We all know it happens. I've done it. I'm sure you guys have done it. Can't be done internally. Can you do this? And the agency is always saying, sure, I'll figure out a way to do it. But then you're stuck. There's no integration. There's no capability. You got your short-term fix. You have to take the time to figure out how to do it. And the best way to do it is to say, how am I going to make the user's life easier? And we're at a point now where we can actually repatriate a lot of those things that we would just throw out and actually make the marketer's life so much easier and with an ability to respond.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so before we get into our quick hit section, last question here. One piece of advice. What's one piece of advice you would give organizations as they think about their MarTech initiatives over the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months? Julia, why don't you kick us off, and then we'll go to Shri.
Yeah, it's the best advice I can give right now is encourage everybody to start becoming comfortable with AI. Start using it, start developing with it, and provide people with the licenses they need. And start task forces. Start getting people to come up with ideas. Get them in the room. Start brainstorming, and just play with it. You know, if they have 100 ideas and 99% of them don't work, but that one great idea really brings an elevation to what you're doing, you've learned so much through that. And it's about getting people to come in and start to imagine what can be and getting that excitement going. And it starts with leadership, thinking about culture, about a culture of innovation, of actually trying things out, testing out new capabilities, and really moving into that space. We've seen a few of those capabilities here, and it's how do you incorporate them? How does it make our world better? I would say start right away and actually give them the tools to do it. If it means spending a little bit of money on licenses so they can play, or a playground somewhere, give it to them. Let them go and create. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of people that way.
Sri, what would you add?
I'm going to probably skirt on the edge of controversy here by agreeing with you, but also slightly, I mean, besides the controversial statement.
You'll owe me a drink afterward.
Yeah, of course, many. Besides the controversial statement that I'm a rabid Arsenal and a San Jose Earthquakes fan, so there's that. But having said that, I think the one thing I would say is from the standpoint of, I agree with the experimentation bit, but I think we are now erring too much on the side of encouraging people to use all kinds of tools that are there at their disposal simply because it becomes either a resume kind of an effect, or people are just besotted with the new tools. And my point is, I think, yes, the new tools, the new capabilities inherent with an AI is important, but ultimately when you're trying to make decisions for your customers, you need to worry about two things in particular. One is your data has to be absolutely full of fidelity. You need to have good data, otherwise all of the customer journey kinds of conversations you're going to have, the kinds of conclusions that come out of that are going to be fairly faulty, and that's a terrible thing to happen. We just spoke to a large customer out of the East Coast in the financial services, and one of the things they said was, look, we made a lot of false positives when it comes to fraud detection. That's because we had the latest and greatest AI tools, but unfortunately we didn't have good data. So I think one big piece of advice from my standpoint, to the extent that I can give any advice at all, is yes, these tools are important. Yes, it's important for you to become literate in all these AI capabilities, which of course, you're going to see quite a bit more of. But I think back to the brass tacks is equally important in terms of you looking at the data and making sure that the data actually serves the kinds of decisions you're passing on to your customers. To me, that's very important.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. All right, so quick hit session, wrapping this thing up. One app or tool you genuinely could not function with, work or personal. Go.
Can you repeat that?
One app or tool that you genuinely could not function with, work or personal.
Right now, these days?
Right now.
Wow. I would have to say it's my AI tool. I am doing today things that would take me 3 days in less than 30 minutes. It's incredible. With agentic workflows and some of the things that I'm able to do, I'm able to access, for instance, as an example, Deloitte's entire knowledge capital, all our papers, all our white papers, all of our documents that we've created, strategies that we've built. And now, instead of me having to do searches and having multiple people involved, and I can access that today and get out ideas, proposals, points of view in minutes. And I would have to say that that's just the tip of the iceberg of what we're seeing. And in the last 2-3 months, I've seen so much of that time become so small part of my week. And people are always coming to me as a partner saying, what's your point of view on this? What do you expect from this? And to have that power, that knowledge capital at your fingertips so fast has been an extremely valuable tool for me.
To me, the professional is the AI tool Amazon Quick. which I develop all kinds of documents and workflows and God forbid, even program that I do quite a bit of. On the personal front, Suno, which is a music development app, which I absolutely love for someone without any creativity whatsoever like me. It's a fabulous app to be able to develop your own music.
Wow, never heard of that. Have to check it out. Okay, one thing on your radar, show, book, podcast, anything you would recommend that our audience listen to, read, hear?
Why don't you go first this time?
I'm a child of the 80s, and I grew up on British sitcoms, and one of my favorites is this thing called the Yes Prime Minister and Yes Minister series, which talks about the dysfunction in government. It's by far, it's written by the guy who actually did My Cousin Vinny, so you can well imagine, the kind of, but it's really acerbic, sharp, intellectual humor. I laugh a lot, and I'd recommend that.
Julio?
Can you repeat that question again?
What's one thing on your radar that you would recommend the audience consume?
Wow. This is going to sound strange and a bit off topic. But I think one of the things that I am seeing with all the technology that we're consuming, that we've forgotten how to talk to each other. And you see it everywhere. Everybody's in their phones, everybody's on the technology, but the power of people interacting with one another, sharing ideas, I think COVID really hurt us that way. And now that people are starting to come together, you cannot get away from a team of people at a table with a whiteboard. You'll never get that online. You'll never get that online. And we need to go back to recreating that environment. Like that example of doing something on a whiteboard and having, that is the kind of interaction you need to have. That's the kind of interaction you need to have with technology. The power is in the ideas of the creative people.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely agree. What part of the conference are you looking forward to the most of what we have left?
The parties? No.
There you go, the parties.
I'm actually looking forward to, that was just joking, I'm sorry. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what you guys are doing, actually. I'm really impressed with SaaS, how far you've come with AI, the things that you're doing. Just on Wednesday, I'm just going to show a demo of one agentic system that's based off of Claude, now talking to SaaS, that can be talking to another system. And all of that's happened in months. And in a few months, you're going to have all of those pillars that you were showing are all going to have their own agentic flows. And then you're going to have an agentic wrapper. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're doing in AI because I am looking forward to actually seeing how I can use that to connect into my other AI tools. And I don't think that there's one solution necessarily for large organizations that solves everything. And I've seen lots of clients that have Adobe and SaaS and Salesforce and a whole bunch of other things. And it's understanding the strengths of where the technology is coming. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm actually here to try and learn more about where SaaS is going, what are some of the AI capabilities you have, and taking that home with me and figuring out how do I improve my client's world based on the technology you guys are building.
I was going to buy you a drink in one of the parties, so that's number one. I think to me, I always come to these conferences with having an engineering mindset, so which means I'm looking for a lot of the product demonstrations. In particular, I'm looking forward to seeing the advances, the materially difference-making advantages that SaaS has brought to the table with agentic AI implementations, particularly in marketing, so that I can take it back and talk to my own people back at AWS. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and to seeing Dr. Goodnight on stage.
All right. Well, there we go, folks. I will give one call out. One thing you didn't mention, Shri, is AWS. So Dilip and Doug from AWS do have a session on agentic AI and some of the infrastructure and technology that underpins a lot of the solutions that AWS has that we leverage in some of our technology. So be sure to check that out as well. But thank you guys. Thank you for paying attention and sticking with us. I'm going to pass it back over to Mr. Blanchard.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all of our presenters today, actually. We're running a little bit early, so I'm going to use the opportunity to do some Q&A with myself, Rob, and I'm going to invite Steve as our engineering leader. So if you start having questions that you want to ask us, I've been told that everyone in the room is able to ask a question except Rusty Warner, because he asks really hard questions. But no, I want Rusty to ask Rob some really hard questions. Perfect. No, so please just, if you have some questions, please start thinking through those. I want to touch on a couple of things. One thing that Julio said was really important was the human-to-human connection. Outside of the technology side from SaaS that we're obviously building on, I'm also looking at how we provide a better customer experience to all of our existing customers and any new potential customers that are onboarding to SaaS. So firstly, I just want to apologize. I did make some changes back in January. There might have been a little bit of disruption to some of the people that were servicing you. Our intention is not to start scaling back on that. It's just that, obviously, as we scale more customers, I can't just keep throwing more people at this. So we're taking a step back to look at actually how do we provide a better experience to the users of our software. All I firstly want to say is, if you need to talk to an expert, we've removed the barriers directly. So just talk to your SaaS person and tell them, I've got a problem in this part of the tool. We will get you that expert to talk to really, really quickly. So we've removed some of the layers because we have our internal handovers to get to those experts. The second thing we're doing is we're relooking at how we communicate to you. Obviously, one of the challenges is actually getting really agile in our delivery is we're making lots of changes that are rolling out to you. So how do we get better in communicating those changes? One of the things we're going to be doing is using the application itself. So we are rolling out different ways so we can communicate to you through the application to the users. Again, please talk to us. Tell us what you want, how you want to get the kind of information that you're seeing us present, because there's going to be a lot of changes. And then the final thing that we're working on is just using AI, of course. So how do we have an agentic capability that you can ask questions to? So one of the things we're doing, we have a huge amount of tech expert content in CI360, and we are going to make an agent available to that content that you can use. That will come out later this year. So again, lots of ways that we're trying to reimagine how you understand the tool, how you understand what's new, and actually, solve the problems that are immediately in front of you. The second thing I'd say that I'm saying to all of our clients at the moment is the next few years is going to see a level of change I don't think any of us have seen in the last 15, certainly in my 15 to 20 years in the marketing automation space. I think the agentic capability is going to rewire processes faster than any of us realize. And I think what we're trying to do is really trying to understand those handovers that you have in your organization that ultimately slows down your campaign process. And how can we use some of the agentic capabilities? I'll give you a good example. I think it was mentioned by Julio or one of the team earlier. I've had banks talk to me recently that the biggest challenge they have is the compliance teams. And getting, sending the communication over into some sort of Dropbox internally in the compliance team, and then at some point that compliance team picking it up, going through and either checking yes or probably saying no, and then it goes back and recycles around the same workflow again. So we want to work with our customers on understanding that workflow, where those handovers are, how we can work with you to leverage some of the stuff that we've shown you to actually reduce that. As we've said to you, our ambition is to make this thing productive, make you more productive. So if your entire campaign process is 10 weeks, how do we make that 5 weeks? So that's some of the things we're thinking through. Please talk to us. Talk to us at the event here. Talk to your team. I would love to engage in those conversations with you. So we have a few minutes before I wrap up. I'm going to invite Mr. Taylor, Steve Hill. Steve runs our engineering for CI360. Are there any questions in the room? And I think we have a roving microphone at the back. I know Rusty's got one. He's just desperate. He's not got a question. He's going to have a question. Do you want to sit down? Should we sit down? Okay. While you're thinking of a question, I'm going to ask a question. Okay. So, in the future, is there a software interface anymore, or are we just talking to an agent?
That's a great question. I'd say there is, because I think you still need that you need that explainability, you need the validity. Eventually that may go. I guess we're just going to see where that is. But I definitely see this need to be able to, from a compliance perspective, yes, this is what we've done, this is what it's done. That kind of written down somewhere. If that's a new, different type of UI, I think we're still on that journey to work out what that is.
Steve?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, future is a big topic, and we're probably still at a place for a while where we need an interface that's going to give you the opportunity to review and sort of see what's happening and to be that human in the loop and approve. As things evolve, I agree with Rob. I think the idea of an interface is going to change, and it's going to be more dashboards and more overview and results oriented and less about doing the work.
Okay. Just looking at any questions yet in the room? Don't be shy. There's one at the back, Brigitte. She's coming.
Hi, so what's the feedback of, from the early adopters using marketing AI, marketing decisioning? Like, what have they seen the biggest lift? You know, like, because I know that they've been utilizing it for a few months, and so what's the kind of, what are they experiencing?
I think we've got one here who's going to do a section on it. I don't know when it is. I think Jen will be able to tell us, but WWF are doing one, I think. So I'd like to let them tell their story.
Yeah, I would join their session. I think it's on Wednesday, but we do have it on the screen as we wrap up. But that would be a great one to join.
Yeah. I'll give you an overview, though, is we're seeing, we started off thinking this was for a marketer. And we wanted, you know, in a brutal way, we wanted to remove data scientists. But what we've seen with the early adopters is that some of the data scientists that teams have actually want to use the product as well, because they see it as an experimentation tool, very quickly to scale these out. And if they see some value, they can put that into their own data science team and build on that. So we've seen lots of different things, and it's still changing all the time. Tapan will say, he still thinks some of the stuff is too technical. And it's a fine line between, we want to show explainability, we want credibility, because we know, you know, some customers will say their data scientist has to approve it, so we have to put it in. But on the other hand, we just need a simple toggle, which is very simple versus a little bit more. So we're at the beginning of this. This is not a, we deliver and we're done. We will carry on continuing other things. So we're initially coming out with 2 use cases. Churn, propensity, next best action is the next one, which seems to be the one that a lot of customers want. And it really is, again, just talking to customers to help us with that roadmap in terms of what's next. But I think we've done some major things which I don't see anywhere else in the market. Using all their data, being completely open and transparent, doing their data in their environment, but offering that as a software as a service. So I would say, obviously, but we've had very good positive feedback.
Yeah. I'll just add to that from from our business proposition. We see in the market 2 ways to develop modeling. One is to use experts, and whether they're using tools like SAS, open source, and they're either internal to your organization or you're external to your organization. So that's the data science route. The other route is an application that's using AI embedded in the tool. And typically what you see in those types of applications is you don't understand how the AI is making the decisions. So what we've tried to do is come up with something in the middle, something that gives you the capability of a data science person, but within a fraction of the time. So most of our clients are telling us to get a marketing model produced is anywhere from at best 3 to 6 months. Some customers telling us it takes longer than 6 months. And we're just talking about a churn model. So my value is to say, if I can give you that model for almost the same accuracy as your data science team in 2 weeks, I can give you 10 times the amount of modeling. And we're just, really simple maths on this. You can look, I think in the US, I think the average data science person is $12,000 a month, right? So you can put a financial cost on producing one of those marketing models, right? If I can make this just really easy for you, and the data science team are happy because, as Rod shows, they can see what the tool's doing, I can just give you a level of scalability in your campaigns. And then ultimately that is, you should have for every type of one-to-one campaign you're trying to do, you should have a bespoke model built for that campaign. And I think where I'm trying to get to is, why does the industry sort of accept, let's say in email, 30% response rates or 30% open rates are good, right? We should be, as an industry, saying this should be 70% open rates. That's what we should be saying. And that comes with targeting, and that comes with all the modeling and the AI. So, okay, any other? Oh, come on, Rusty, I know you've got one. Go on. Yes. Rusty Warner, by the way, from Forrester, is in the room. First time our analysts are participating in our CI Solution Connect.
So thanks for the information and the opportunity to ask a question. Kind of a hard one. I agree with some of the discussion in John's panel about how MarTech is not a monolithic stack or a platform. It's an ecosystem, and it's not completely composable because there are no two MarTech solutions from two vendors that would replace each other. They're too different. So it has to be integrated, and now we're seeing everyone move toward agents. So what is SAS doing to make sure that your agents would play well with Adobe agents or Salesforce agents or Braze agents or Pega agents? And are there recommendations for your customers as to where they should turn to SAS for agentic functionality versus where it might make sense to have that come from another vendor? Like maybe I turn to Adobe for creative, but SAS for analytics, but it's not that simple. So over to you.
Great question. Steve, do you want to start that one?
Sure. I didn't even know I was going to be up here today, and give me that one. No, I mean, it's something we've been actively talking about very recently as we've had conversations, with Julio, for example, on some of the work that he's going to be talking about and how we can effectively expose those agentic capabilities, put good borders around what we're going to do, what we're going to expose, and how. And so as you saw that picture of sort of what our internal agentic structure is, there's a piece that's not there, which is probably some form of an MCP server or other connection as the market evolves every week that is going to make that possible, and these things are tools. I was even just thinking about this earlier today, and neither Mike nor Rob know this, but I was thinking about how when we have marketing decisioning and we put it out into customers' environments as a way to do that next best action, well, why don't we also make sure it exposes a tools interface, right, when we deploy it? So there's things like that that are happening, when we're thinking about these things today, that we're definitely headed that direction.
I just had one thing, which I've seen a couple of, I don't know if it's vendors, but they're talking about agents will have access to all their data and they can do whatever. I think it's just a governance hell in terms of what that is doing. So there is a significant amount of thought about what we do expose, how we expose it, and we don't, sorry AWS, run up bills of significant portion because they're all asking for data when in reality they could all just be using one single source.
I think the governance is another important part of that we're going to have to figure out. Like I just read an article today where Claude and I can't remember the name of the provider now, another cloud provider, one of the smaller ones, it deleted all their data, like in a runaway thing. It took 9 seconds to wipe out their entire business. So we do need to be careful as we go about this with what we decide to expose.
Okay, final question. Anyone in the room before I wrap up? Any other questions? Nope.
So Steve, you've taken on a broader role within SaaS with software as a service. Are there any things that you have inherited which may help CI?
Yeah, looking at the software as a service landscape at SaaS, there's a couple of different things that I find really interesting that are going to play here. One of them is Workbench, which is another software as a service way to give access to, again, talking about the data scientists and, okay, I found something interesting in marketing AI that's giving me some good lift. Now I want to dig in deep. And I need a place to sort of play with that as a data scientist. So I think how we could transfer those models and run them, because they use the same stuff under the covers between Workbench and CI360 is interesting. But the one that I'm really excited about is DataMaker. So this was from the synthetic data world where we can take data sets and with some really good algorithmic logic that focused on differential privacy and all these ways of generating data that is shaped correctly and then scales to feed to marketing AI. Right? I just envision a world where we can take the data that's local, use that to generate some synthetic data in the customer's environment, and then leverage that to have more of these scenarios that, like you were showing with recipes that have multiple different tables and different sizes. So I think there's a lot of promise there with synthetic data. Thank you for that softball.
Thank you, guys. Right, just a quick wrap up. So I'm just going to tell you the easiest shortcut to finding all the CI content is using the SaaS Events app. And all you have to do is go into the app where it says build your agenda, scroll right down to the bottom, and you will see customer intelligence. And you will see all of the specific customer intelligence related content this week, okay? Immediately after this, the plan is to go to the Innovation Hub. There is a happy hour, and then there are a couple of super demos there from the team, including our superstar lady that does all of our agentic work. And then later this evening, there is a party, which I'll finish on in a second. But all of the content is in the app, okay? So really easy to find. Thank you for all of our presenters. I know we haven't seen all of the content today. That was deliberate because they are presenting that throughout the week. So please make sure that you get to those sessions. And please engage with us as well, the folks that are here, the leaders, and tell us some of your experiences and what we can do better and your thoughts on this agentic world. So I'll leave you with the CI party. So please come tonight, and it's not on my credit card for a change. So that's even better. So thank you, everyone. Have a good event. Thank you for your time. Thanks.